there. I hope you are doing well and staying safe. If you couldn't tell, today's recipe revolves around strawberries, which are my favorite fruit, and I have to say that they're just now hitting their peak season. And I was lucky enough to get a bunch of them when I was at the farmer's market this past weekend. So I really wanted to create a recipe that showcased the natural beauty and sweetness of the strawberry. And what I like about this cake recipe is that other ones that I've tried in the past use strawberry extract or even strawberry jello, and they're annoyingly delicious. I'm not gonna say that they're not good, but I don't really like to use artificial colorings or flavorings when I'm baking. So this one actually relies on the natural strawberry itself, as well as some freeze-dried strawberry, which we're gonna add to the batter to make a delicious cake. So I'm very excited, and I hope you are a strawberry fan as much as I am. So let's get started with the ingredients. Now to this, we're going to add the remaining dry ingredients. So we have our baking powder, baking soda, and salt. I'm just going to stir this until all of the dry ingredients are well incorporated. So you can see it's a nice faint pink color, and we will just set this aside and get to our wet ingredients. We're going to start with adding our butter along with the sugar. We're going to cream this together until it's well incorporated. It's not going to get super fluffy, but we just want to make sure that it's all combined. Alright, so you can see now that it's a little lighter in color. I'm going to scrape the sides. So I'm going to continue to mix this and slowly add our egg whites, which I'm going to separate and add in on low speed. Make sure you keep scraping the sides of the bowl in case anything sticks. You just want to make sure that everything is really well incorporated. It's looking really good. I'll keep mixing in the egg whites for another couple minutes. Alright, so you can see I've been whipping this for about 3 to 5 minutes, and the texture has totally changed. So it's become really light, almost this pale white, and it's doubled in size, which is really great. This will just ensure that the cake is nice and fluffy. I'm going to add our whole milk Greek yogurt. I really like to add Greek yogurt because it adds a lot of flavor, but also it helps to retain the moisture in the cake. If you don't have Greek yogurt, you can use sour cream, but I would really stick with whole milk, whole fat if you can, with baking in general, but it just makes the cake taste a lot better, obviously. And now what I'm going to do is add our strawberry puree. So I just took some fresh strawberries and I pureed them until they were totally smooth in a blender. You could also use a food processor if you want. And to this I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of oil. So I'll stir that around until it makes this nice, beautiful colored puree. And then what I'll do is take the dry ingredients that we had set aside, and I'm going to alternate adding the wet and the dry ingredients to the mixture. So the cake is now just mixed. We want to make sure not to overmix the batter. So you can see the batter is this really nice pink color. It's beautiful. And the reason it is so bright is because we used the fresh strawberries as well as the freeze-dried strawberries. If you only used fresh strawberries, you'd have to add a lot more puree, and you're introducing a lot of liquid into the batter, which makes it really gummy. All right, so now we're gonna put this into our cake pans. and then bake it in the oven. So the strawberry frosting we're going to make for the cake is actually very easy. It's only 4 ingredients: butter, powdered sugar, some strawberry puree, same as the one that we used in our cake batter, and a little vanilla. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the butter to the mixer and let that cream together until it gets fairly light, about 2 to 3 minutes. And we just want to make sure that it's nice and airy before we add anything else. All right, so you can tell it's a little paler now, and it's much more smooth and fluffy. Add half of the powdered sugar, and then mix it on low speed. So just dump about half of it in. I don't sift my powdered sugar. I find if you just keep it in an airtight container, it should be totally fine when you add it to the frosting. So start very low. Okay, so now once the first half of the powdered sugar is incorporated, just add the second half. And again, start low, and then we're gonna raise the speed to medium and let that be for about 3 to 5 minutes. And you'll notice it'll get really light and really fluffy. Okay, so I've let this whip about 4 minutes, and you can tell it's totally different now. It's really light and this like pale white color, and that's perfect. So what we want to do is scrape down the sides of the bowl. Always be scraping, because the last thing you want is to have just a chunk of butter or powdered sugar stuck on the side that you have to keep mixing. Okay, so now this is ready for our strawberry puree. And we're gonna add, I'll start with about 2 tablespoons into the frosting. And we can always add more. It smells so good. I'm also going to add a little bit of vanilla. So this adds a nice kind of strawberries and cream taste to it, but just a little splash, about half a teaspoon. Okay, I think this looks perfect now. It's this lovely pale pink color, and it smells just like fresh strawberries and a little bit of that vanilla. It's really perfect. So that's ready to go. And I also have some fresh strawberries that we're going to use in between the cake layers. So now we're just gonna assemble the cake and decorate it and eat it. All right, so now we're ready to frost and decorate the cake, which is honestly the best part. All of the hard work that we put into each of the components really comes together here, and you're just really supposed to have fun with it. So we have our cake layers, which have completely cooled. The nice thing is that they bake really flat, and so you don't have to trim off any of the excess top. We have our fresh strawberries here sliced, which we're going to use in between each of the cake layers. And then we also have our frosting that I've divided half of it into this piping bag. You can also use a heavy-duty plastic bag if you don't have a piping bag. So the first thing I'm going to do is add just a little bit of frosting to the bottom to serve as glue for the first layer, and add the first layer of cake here. Make sure it's centered as well as possible. And then what we're going to do is just pipe a ring around the edge as evenly as possible. I like to do this because it creates an even guide, so you know that each of the layers are going to be flat as you start building. And then I'm going to put my fresh strawberries, and I really like to pack in whatever filling I'm using, whether it's fruit or caramel or lemon curd, as much as possible. So we're going to try to fill as much of the inside of the cake, the little jigsaw of strawberries. And then we're going to add a bit of the frosting on top. And I like to smooth this in. It really cements the fruit into the cake so that you don't have anything poking and making the cake layers uneven. Because a lot of this is like almost architectural, where you're trying to build a very tall but even structure. So you want to make sure that the layers in between are super even. And then take any of the excess frosting and then just put it back into your bowl. Add the second layer and make sure it's even on all sides, and just repeat. So again, we're going to pipe frosting, add our second layer of strawberries. Something I learned about strawberries is that they actually are the only fruits to have seeds on the outside. And honestly, when I learned this, I thought about it for a few days. It seems like there's some evolutionary advantage to having your seeds be on the inside of your fruit. But then I thought about it more and I was just like, maybe that's just its thing. Like, it just likes having seeds on the outside, and it doesn't really care what the other fruits are doing. It just does its own thing. It's like when everyone else loved Arcade Fire, and I was just like, guys, I really don't get it, and I just never jumped on that bandwagon. So I appreciate strawberries for having their seeds on the outside. Just be yourself. Final layer. At this point, if you wanted to, you could just stop here and you would basically have just a naked cake. But what we're going for today is more of like a sheer covering of the cake. So I'm gonna take the frosting and just pipe rings starting from the bottom and working my way up. This doesn't have to be pretty, it just is trying to ensure that we get even frosting coverage eventually on the outside of the cake. It's gonna look like you've mummified the cake with frosting. And then what I do is I take my offset spatula and just kind of smooth it very roughly. Again, this is gonna be sheer finishing. So we want some of the cake layers to peek through. It's not gonna be totally covered. You could totally cover it if you wanted to, but that's not the look that we're going for today. So that looks pretty good. I don't really see any big gaps of the cake showing through anymore. Now we're gonna go through and use our bench scraper. The best way to use this is just to keep it steady. Don't really move your bench scraper and rotate the cake, because we wanna make sure that this is steady and creates a nice even surface, and that the cake itself is what's doing all the work. So we really shouldn't be moving at all. So we'll go very slowly. And then any excess frosting you have here, just wipe it on the side of like a bowl. So what we're gonna do again is just keep the bench scraper still, but kind of push into it a little more and then keep rotating. So again, a little more pressure than you had before, but just keep it as still as possible. So I think this looks pretty good. The great thing about this finishing, the sheer look, is that it's very forgiving. So if you find that you've scraped off too much, you can always add more. Or if you have too much, then you can just keep working until you get the desired look that you want. But I really like this because you can tell that some of the cake layers are peeking through, but it definitely is this rustic frosted look. So now what we're going to do is add frosting to the top. I add about like a generous half cup of frosting, and then I use my offset spatula just to smooth it. And this, you can have the top look however you want. If you want it totally flat, go for that. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of like a textured swirl on top, because it looks a little more fun that way. All right, so now we have the finished cake right here. I keep looking at it and saying, it's so beautiful, but it really is. And remember, it has strawberries all throughout. So we put fresh strawberries and freeze-dried strawberries in the cake, fresh strawberries in between each layer, and then strawberry frosting on the outside. So now all we have left to do is to slice it and dig into it. So let's see how this looks inside. I can feel the fresh strawberries. Want like a nice, generous slice. Okay. Okay, let's see how this looks. Ta-da! Beautiful! So you can see the slight pink from the strawberry powder and the pureed strawberries that we put in, and the fresh strawberries, and it's just like such a cute, delightful cake. Let's try it. Now let's try it. I'll always recommend you get a bit of everything in each bite. So we have some of the strawberries, some of the cake, definitely some of that frosting. It tastes so fresh. Like, not too sweet. It's really just nice, bright strawberry cake that really emphasizes the beauty of summer. So I hope you have a chance to make it. Before I wrap up this recipe, I wanted to dedicate this cake to 3 organizations that I'm donating to personally and leaving a link to down below. They are the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the Black Visions Collective, and Campaign Zero. And if you'd like to donate to them, please feel free to do so. But more importantly, I think it's upon all of us to educate ourselves and to support organizations like these that are doing good work across the country. I hope you remain safe, and I can't wait to see you again for my next baking recipe. Bye.